Today, I have a heavy heart as we reflect on the UK COVID Day of Remembrance. All the lives that were lost, all the answers that are not present, all the inaction that has not been addressed, all the mistakes that potentially, if it were acknowledged, were being made. And this is from the BBC News. Loved ones remembered on the fifth anniversary of the start of COVID. And this here, you can see two people hugging. It was published 8th of March 2025, just a few hours ago. And it's just highlighting some of the emotional scenes across the UK. The words from the Prime Minister as we mark 5 years since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. And the reason why I feel such a heavy heart on it is because I've just completed a 2 hour interview with Dr. Shetty and Dr. Vijay. What we were doing is that it's coming up to the trial for Dr. Shetty in South Africa. And if you don't know who he is now, I first interviewed him in about April of 2021. And Dr. Shetty was one of those people who literally had zero deaths in terms of the pandemic. And what's quite remarkable is that the trial is not about whether or not he actually achieved that. The trial is about something else he said in relation to the spike protein and the origins and the work that probably needs to be done. And there is no reflection on what it is that he achieved from a clinical perspective. Very important for you to watch that interview. The link is in the description below. And it can't be put on mainstream media because it was one of those very frank interviews. He just said it as it was, how he saw it from the start, and how he went through the process of saving lives. What is so sad is that what he did could have been implemented anywhere in the world. And in fact, the other doctor who was there, Dr. Vijay from Malaysia, after I did the interview in 2021, he immediately got in contact with Dr. Shetty. They set up a training system for over 300 doctors on that side of the world. They immediately implemented it, got exactly the same results. Dr. Shetty was also then brought into Meghalaya, a region of India, as a governmental guide, and they immediately got the same results. In the UK, based on the numbers that were shared here, I'm just showing you now why this is so sad. When you look across the UK, we had just under 227,000 people who died from COVID. And there are some bits of this that we couldn't help because of the timing in terms of what Dr. Shetty found out and how he realized and what he was working on. But when you look at our world in data, and you see this is for the UK, you can see two definite periods where there were surges in deaths. This was the first wave up to June 2020. And then there was another wave here from October all the way to March 2021. And then there was a further rise with regards to Delta going up after that. If at this point, because by this time they had already known about the recovery trial with regards to dexamethasone, if at this point a Dr. Shetty strategy had been implemented, we could have saved maybe 150,000 lives. It sounds incredible. But as I said, when you listen to the interview and you reflect carefully on the science, and if you put this in front of anyone and they say, I don't believe that anybody could do that, then it shows they're not actually searching for answers. When you are genuinely searching for answers, you will look at any solution in front of you. And if someone has got remarkable outcomes, you would want to see that too. Now, I think the reason why the transparency is so important is because more and more information is coming out with regards to the potential origin of this virus. And frankly, if at this point you don't have any questions, I'm not sure if you can be helped in the context of being able to see beyond what is just superficial information. And the reason it's so important is because if we don't get to mechanisms and if we don't understand exactly what happened and why it happened and what were the mechanisms that made it happen, there is very little chance for longer term mitigation. And as I said, you have to listen to the interview. If Dr. Shetty called it right at the beginning of the pandemic, I would suspect that what he says at this point should be taken seriously. And the reason he's being pulled in front of the court, as I said, is not because they have a problem with him saving all these lives. They didn't question that. It's just because his perspective on the intent of what happened is against that narrative. What you have to remember whenever I am speaking about the COVID storm, and in case you don't understand what I mean when I say the COVID storm, I'm usually referring to what I call the spike triggered autoimmune response mechanism. And the reason that I highlight this point, I'll just get this here. Yes, as I was saying, the spike triggered autoimmune response mechanism. This principle is essentially what is guiding my research now about what are the implications for recurring exposure of, let me be careful here, of virus with attached spike protein to the immune system of the population. And what is concerning me greatly is that there seems to be scientific silence about this. There seems to be the view that it is behind us. I can only warn you that you have to think beyond the moment. As I said, in order to understand what I'm saying, you have to watch that interview. It's 2 hours long. We left no stone unturned, looking at the past, talking about what the perspectives were, and looking towards the future. The implications of ongoing circulation, as I said, the Denmark study just recently published has demonstrated that within 30 days, if a patient is hospitalized with COVID, didn't say severe COVID, I just said with a diagnosis of COVID, within 30 days, 12% of them would die. And within 6 months, that could easily be over 20% or higher. This is not done with us. And more than ever, you need the public to start asking questions. If you don't ask questions, if you don't press for the right buttons, if you don't push for transparency, the implications are going to come back. We really need answers, and we need them urgently. And all I can do is put it in front of you as practically as I can without saying anything that gets me censored. A final point, as I have shared before, the recent information about breakthrough in terms of documents, 6,000 pages, should also worry everyone. The characteristics that are inserted into this virus are nothing we've ever seen before. And we have to be prepared, both from a patient point of view and especially from a clinical point of view, that the implications on the longer term health problems are only just beginning. I don't mind being wrong on this one, but sadly, so far, year on year, these concerns have been proved right. As I said, join us in the link below when you can see the full presentation here for Dr. Shetty. And you can see this full presentation here. It's broken up into sections, time-stamped, essentially giving us the ideas, everything he was thinking. We could have probably spoken for longer, but it was already a long session to capture all of his thoughts. And this is primarily so that you understand what he thought then, what he did then, how many lives could have been saved by his actions, and critically, what the future may hold. Have a great evening, and we'll continue to keep you updated.